What if the things you hate about yourself are actually your biggest strengths? Think about that for a moment. The parts you hide, the traits you suppress, the thoughts you're too scared to admit. What if they're not weaknesses? What if they're hidden sources of power, just waiting for you to acknowledge them? Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, struggled with his own darkness. He didn't run from it. He sat with it. He listened to it. And through that, he discovered the parts of us we reject. He called them shadow, but that secretly holds the keys to our growth. Now let me ask you, what if your ego isn't something you need to shrink? What if it's something you can elevate, refine, and strengthen? By watching this video till the end. By the end of this video, you will learn how to transform your dark side into pure strength. So stay with me, and you'll know how to grow your ego into a force that serves you, not controls you. Let's begin. Think back to childhood. Maybe you were told to calm down when you were excited, so you learned to suppress enthusiasm. Or maybe you were scolded for being too loud, too bold, too emotional, so you stuffed those traits deep inside. That backpack grew heavier with every moment you hid a part of yourself. Jealousy? It's in there. Procrastination? In there too. The fear of failure, the fear of judgment, all crammed in. But here's the twist. That backpack isn't just full of burdens. What if, just what if, inside all that mess are secret weapons? Because behind jealousy is desire. Behind laziness is the need for rest and a genius at finding shortcuts. Behind anger is passion. Most people never open that backpack. They just carry the weight. But the moment you unzip it and peek inside, you begin to discover tools, energy, and talents you didn't even know you had. You've heard it everywhere. Crush your ego. Let go of your ego. But what if I told you that your ego isn't the enemy? What if your ego is the captain of your ship? Think about it. A good captain knows where the ship is headed. The ego gives you direction, ambition, identity. It says, this is who I am and this is where I'm going. But there's a difference between a healthy captain and a tyrant. A healthy ego stands tall, listens to the crew, and makes smart decisions. An inflated ego? That's a loud, insecure tyrant, barking orders, ignoring warnings, and pretending to know everything, while secretly terrified the ship might sink. And do you know what turns the ego into that tyrant? When you refuse to face your fears, insecurities, and hidden desires, your ego becomes fragile. It overcompensates. It tries too hard. It can't admit mistakes. But when you open that backpack, when you start understanding those darker parts, your ego becomes stronger, calmer, and more grounded. It's no longer pretending. It knows its strengths and weaknesses. It leads with confidence, not arrogance. So the question is, do you want a fearful tyrant steering your life, or a wise, steady captain? Let me tell you a story. Steve Jobs, a visionary genius, but also famously arrogant, demanding, and impatient. Most people tried to hide their flaws. Jobs didn't. He accepted them, even leaned into them. He knew his arrogance could push people away, but he also knew that same fire made him demand the impossible and achieve it. He didn't let his flaws control him, but he didn't pretend they didn't exist either. He danced with them, balanced them, and that's the secret. When you acknowledge your dark traits, your jealousy, your anger, your fear, they lose their power over you. They stop whispering and start becoming tools you can use. Jealousy, it tells you what you deeply desire. Anger, it points to boundaries you need to set. Fear, it shows where you need to grow. According to Carl Jung, when you accept your shadow or backpack, you build inner stability. You stop wasting energy hiding, pretending, and overcompensating. Instead, you stand solid, calm, aware of both your light and dark sides and how they serve you. But here's the tricky part. Facing your shadow can feel terrifying. How do you do it without fear taking over? In just a minute, I'll guide you through a simple, powerful exercise to meet your shadow face to face. And you might be surprised by what or who you find. Okay, now it's time to get practical. Let's talk about how you can start working with your shadow today. Don't worry, this isn't going to be heavy or dark. Think of it like making friends with a part of yourself that's been hiding in the corner, waiting for you to notice. Step 1. Self-reflection journaling. Grab a notebook, sit quietly, and ask yourself, what triggers me? Who do I envy? What do I criticize most about others? Write without judgment. The more honest you are, the more gold you'll uncover. Step 2. Catching projections. Here's the truth. What annoys you in others is often something you haven't accepted in yourself. Next time someone really gets under your skin, pause. Ask, what part of me am I seeing in them? It's uncomfortable at first, but it's also a shortcut to deep self-awareness. Step 3. Inner dialogues. This one is fun. Imagine sitting down for tea with the part of you that's jealous, or angry, or scared. Visualize them sitting across from you. What do they look like? What would you ask them? And most importantly, what do they want to tell you? Listen carefully. You'll be surprised how wise those shadow parts can be. Now let's do a quick exercise together. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. Picture the part of you that you usually hide or suppress. Maybe it's jealousy, insecurity, anger. See it sitting in front of you. Now gently ask, what are you here to teach me? Pause and just listen. This simple exercise can open doors you didn't even know existed. And remember, your shadow isn't there to hurt you, it's there to guide you. Ready for the next step? Let's talk about how embracing this dance transforms every part of your life. So what happens when you stop running from your shadow and start working with it? Something incredible. You stop apologizing for existing. You start standing taller, not out of arrogance, but from a quiet, powerful self-respect. Let me explain. Most people think confidence comes from achievement, from success, from looking good in front of others. But real confidence, it's born the moment you look at your darkest parts and say, I see you, you're part of me, and I'm okay with that. When you integrate your shadow, you stop being thrown off balance by criticism or rejection. Why? Because nothing can be used against you when you've already accepted it within yourself. Think about it. The person who's at peace with their flaws doesn't get defensive. They smile, they nod, they stay grounded. This is where self-respect comes from, not from perfection, but from radical honesty and acceptance. And guess what? The stronger your self-respect, the more naturally assertive you become. You don't need to yell. You don't need to prove anything. You simply speak, and people listen, because they feel your solidity. Now here's the subtle difference I want you to remember. Confidence isn't arrogance. Arrogance is loud, insecure, desperate for validation. Confidence is calm, steady, and needs nothing from others. It's the difference between a tyrant and a wise captain. The tyrant rules through fear and overcompensation. The captain commands respect by knowing who they are, strengths, flaws, and all. And when your ego is fueled by this integrated self-awareness, it becomes your strongest ally. It knows when to step forward, when to stay silent, and when to stand its ground without aggression. So instead of spending your life trying to shrink your ego, strengthen it with the power of your shadow. You'll be unstoppable. Let's bring this to life. It's one thing to talk about shadow work. It's another to see it in action. First, Muhammad Ali. The world called him cocky, arrogant, loud. But Ali took that so-called flaw, his larger-than-life attitude, and turned it into fuel. He believed in himself so loudly that the world couldn't ignore him. And that belief, it wasn't just showmanship, it became reality. Lesson? Own your boldness. If you believe in yourself unapologetically, others will too. Now, Lady Gaga, she was called weird, eccentric, even ridiculous. Her fashion choices, her performances, all too much for some. But instead of hiding, she doubled down. Her eccentricity became her trademark. People weren't just buying her music, they were buying her bold self-expression. Lesson? The parts of you that feel too much may just be your superpower. And then, Oprah Winfrey, a childhood filled with pain and trauma. She could have hidden those scars, Instead, she used them. She listened with deep empathy. She connected with millions by being real. Her shadow, her past pain, became her ability to hold space for others. Lesson? Your wounds can become bridges to connect with the world. See the pattern? The shadow isn't a weight holding you back. It's the raw material for greatness. In the final chapter, I'll show you how to start this journey today and leave you with something powerful to remember. Let's bring it all together. Your shadow isn't darkness. It's untapped power. All those traits you've buried, the fears, the insecurities, the impulses you wish you didn't have, they're not here to destroy you. They're here to teach you, to strengthen you. Every time you hide from your shadow, you shrink. You become smaller, more timid, less certain. But every time you face it, you grow. You stand taller. You become unshakable. So here's my challenge to you. Start today. Sit down with that part of you you've been avoiding. Ask it questions. Listen, learn. Talk to your shadow and watch your ego rise. Not to dominate others, but to command your own life. Because the moment you stop running from yourself, you become unstoppable. Now I want to hear from you. What's one trait you've been resisting that you're ready to embrace? Drop it in the comments. Let's turn our shadows into power together. Remember, the strongest light comes from facing the dark. See you in the next one.